Hello. April has been a crazy month because of my little passion project of fundraising money to donate to organizations seeking to stop Asian hate. It was an exciting and inspiring experience because I got to work on it from the beginning to the end, as well as to dip my toes into the world of sticker making. Thanks to everyone who contributed to making my fundraiser a success, we were able to donate $2,400 after my company match. I'm incredibly happy and proud of everyone who stepped up to make a difference. So because of all that, I'm a little late this month with posting my bullet journal setup for May. When I started thinking about what theme to do for May, I thought of the saying, April showers bring May flowers. So I knew I wanted to do some sort of theme with flowers. Like nearly all of my themes this year so far, I decided to choose one of my favorite songs to base my theme around. This month, the theme is inspired by another 17 song called Fallin. It is one of their Japanese singles that was released about a year ago. This was also one of the first few songs by 17 that I was told to listen to, and it really captured my attention. It made me interested in 17, so I started listening to them more and then decided to learn the names of the members. And before I knew it, I was a carrot and never looked back since then. 17 actually had another Japanese comeback about a week ago with the song Hitori Janai. That song is also really good. I always feel like the Japanese comebacks by a lot of the Korean groups that I listen to are always amazing. The music video for Fallin is stunning and full of visuals and aesthetically pleasing scenes. There's this one scene where they are all standing in a circle underneath a bunch of hanging flowers. That was the primary inspiration for my theme. That scene looked really magical and captivating, so I wanted to make the hanging flowers the core of my theme. Fallin is a really beautiful song and the choreography is amazing. One of the things I loved was the fact that the China line had a bigger line distribution in this song. Obviously, all of the members were amazing as usual, but since I bias Minghao, I have to brag about him a little. I think his voice fits so perfectly with the enchanting nature of this song. Also, I love his dance in the music video with Hoshi, along with the fact that during their live performances of Fallin he gets the intro and he also ends the choreography center. Minghao is a truly beautiful human and I'm so proud of him. Plus, he recently released a really catchy single called Side by Side in both Korean and Chinese. Anyway, that's enough talking about Minghao for now. Let's get into the song and choreography. Something that never fails to amaze me is the amount of synchronization that 17 has for being such a large group. You can tell that they practice really hard because everything looks super clean and it's really enjoyable to watch. I also love how innovative their choreography is. They are able to capture the feeling and show the imagery of flowers blooming and falling through their choreo. The initial melody of the song is also brought back throughout the chorus too and keeps the sound of the song consistent. Now in the behind the scenes of the music video, a lot of the members are seen chained and trying to portray the struggle to escape. I wanted to keep with the concept of the song and to capture the feeling of wanting to be free, so I decided to go for a more loose and unplanned art style. Because of that style, I decided to use watercolors in my journal because of how unpredictable it is for me when controlling the paint. I felt really out of my element when watercoloring these pages because if you've watched my videos in the past, you'll know that I have a tendency to use rulers for literally everything. For this theme, I had this concept in my head, but I couldn't figure out how to put it on paper. I wanted a full and cohesive painting for the front cover and quote page, so here I started with a piece of watercolor paper. I wasn't sure if the pages in the Maisie Lane journal would hold up to the amount of paint I wanted to use on the cover, so I chose to use watercolor paper and to then tape it in. I started out by painting flowers. You'll see that the style of flowers evolved and I think I improved painting them as I continued. For now, I'll just say that I was going for a more abstract and loose art style with watercoloring. Recently, I bought a new set of Faber-Castell fine liners in the color sepia. I like that this brought more of a softer feel to the spreads rather than using my typical black fine liner. Also, I definitely looked up how to pronounce sepia because all of my life I thought it was pronounced sepia. After I finished painting, I started writing out May on the left and then the translated song lyrics to Fallin. The lyrics read, "Between the time when the flowers bloom and scatter, scars heal and sprouts emerge. We will live for the present moment, the first and the last." That's why I won't take you for granted, because you love somebody like me. These lyrics are a little sad, but I think that they are beautifully written. Anyway, overall I'm not fully in love with the hanging flowers, but I did really enjoy this flourishing script font combined with the serif font that I used for the cover and quote. For the monthly, I wanted to paint the hanging flowers across the top of the page like on the first page. I think that the purple flowers were some of the funniest because they kind of ended up looking like a bunch of grapes. I also wanted to paint some flowers in the bottom right of the spread behind where I later wrote out the name of the song. In this section, I just painted a lot of larger flowers and leaves in comparison to the smaller flowers I was painting earlier in the hanging flowers. While I let the paint dry, I started out writing all of the words on the page. I wrote out the month, the days of the week, the section for the monthly goals, and the dates. I decided to use a green tambo to divide the lines for the calendar. I ended up deciding to use this green to underline and outline throughout the rest of the spread too. Then I just wrote out Fallen Flower over the petals at the bottom right of the page. I love that I was able to keep the song title as part of these pages. Finally, the giant pink flower at the bottom of the page I wanted to save somehow, so I added a couple of details to it using my fine liner. I'm definitely using this theme to practice my watercoloring, and even though it's challenging to me, I think it's still really fun to experiment and to try new things with my bullet journal. To go along with the theme of Fallen Flower, I wanted to incorporate flower petals floating across the page for my habit tracker and mood tracker spread. After writing out the titles, I drew out the boxes for my habits. I realized when editing that I didn't write out which habits I'll be tracking for May. This was one of the spreads that I was really bad at filling out last month, so I think I'm going to rethink which habits I actually want to work on. I mentioned how I wanted my habits to move me towards my yearly goals, but I think I need to reevaluate my goals for the year. I want to look at where I'm at and where I want to be. Anyway, for the mood tracker, I decided to outline flower petals for each of the days. I made them all different shapes, and then I wrote out the dates next to each petal. I really like how the petals actually look like they're just being carried across the page by wind. Of course, I wrote out the key with different colors for the flower petals. Then I finished off the spread by painting the hanging flowers at the top of the page. Around this time, I started getting really unconfident in my watercoloring. I still don't think that it looks amazing, but I'm learning to love it and just use it as a stepping stone for watercoloring in the future. The past couple of months, I did a 2 lines a day spread to force me to reflect more. I didn't remember to write in the journal every day in April, but I do like to go back and write down what happened every day if I can remember. It's one of those spreads that makes me smile when I read over it and see all of the memories. I used to journal a lot in high school, but I stopped during college because of how busy it was. I want to get back into reflecting and journaling, so hopefully this will help. Sometimes I don't have a lot to write or can't really pick out something that was really distinct about the day, so it's nice to only have to fill up 2 lines for each day. I normally go for a very structured and clean 2 lines a day spread, but I decided to keep with my free-flowing style and just wrote the title. After, I wrote the dates down the sides of the pages and just freehanded the lines in between the lines for each day. Last month I tried out a Dutch door setup for one of my weeklies. I actually found that that was one of my most productive weeks in April, so I thought I'd try out another one for May. Especially because at the current moment I feel like I have a lot of things that I need to get done. I find it kind of funny that during my busiest weeks is usually when I'm the most productive. I was like this in high school and college too, where I tended to procrastinate a lot, but then got everything done when it was absolutely necessary. I definitely don't recommend that for students, but I also think that it's important to take time to enjoy life. Personally, I tended to prioritize friendships over my schoolwork because I wanted to be there for my friends. So for this weekly, it was kind of weird because it was actually most of the days in April, so I decided to write April at the top of this half of the Dutch door and then May on the other. Then I did my typical watercolor hanging flower vines down the sides of the spread. Something I learned while doing this style of watercolor was to be patient. When I first started, it looked like just blobs of color everywhere, but it was really important to persevere until the end, and somehow the design came together and turned out okay. This theme was challenging for me as someone who likes to have more structure and plans when designing the journal, but I think it came out pretty well. It didn't do justice to the beauty of 17's Fallen Flower music video, but I think that the style captured the feelings of this song. I definitely want to work on my watercoloring more outside of journaling, especially because flowers are one of the things I love painting or doodling the most. Anyway, I have a lot of exciting projects and things planned for the next couple of months, and I can't wait to share them with you all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!